All right. After giving a sluggish offense for the mid part of the season, Ohio State woke up in a big way against number 10 Nebraska at home, 62-3, the biggest beating an Ohio State team has ever handed a top 10 team. Brandon Zimmerman from Buckeye Battle Cry helping us talk about that one. But more importantly, it's a big 3-game stretch for the Buckeyes to compete for a Big Ten championship. And it starts with Maryland on the road, a 5-4 team coming off another beatdown themselves, 59-3 against that team up north, Brandon.
Yep. Thanks for having me, Mark.
Yeah. So, wow. Before we move on to the Terps, the two things that we've talked about that have been evident to people watching Ohio State football and watching the offense in particular has been the lack of push and protection from the offensive line, and it's been the lack of separation and over-the-top threat in the passing game. I think that the wide receivers made more plays. It's difficult to watch on TV and see the one-on-one matchups until they give you the ISOs against the DBs. But the offensive line, to me, was the star of the game in an unheralded way. I think the offensive line played its best game in weeks.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that one. I think the last couple of weeks we've seen JT Barrett a little more nervous in the pocket than he has been in past. Just his feet are constantly moving around. He just is not getting the ball off as quickly as we are used to seeing JT Barrett do here these last couple of weeks. And we kind of knew that would happen at some point this year. We all kind of figured it would be the early part of the year. You had 3 new starters coming into the line there. They actually played pretty decent the first part of the year. And, of course, you're facing teams like Bowling Green and Tulsa and Oklahoma, who doesn't even have that great of a defense, but they still held up against them, against a top caliber type of team. Once they got into Big Ten play where you've got more beef up front, it just seemed like the offensive line was kind of falling apart there for a little bit. That game against Penn State was kind of rock bottom for them, where Penn State was getting in at ease. I think on dropbacks, JT Barrett was pressured. It was something like 55% of the time. This was the first game in a long time that we've seen JT Barrett able to drop back, stay calm, look to see who is open and throw to him without, immediately 3-step drop and trying to run around the pocket just to save his life. So the offensive line played a great game, and I think they're coming together at the right time, because if they struggle like they did against Penn State, against Michigan, it could get ugly pretty quick.
Mike Weber, of course, has been terrific in the running game. Demario McCall, we got to see him for extended playing time for the first time since going back to the Rutgers game. He didn't see the field in regards to getting the football in his hands. Let's see, for 4 or 5 consecutive games. And you've got some thoughts about Weber banged up coming down the home stretch versus McCall showing us something against the Cornhuskers and possibly some options for the Buckeyes there.
Yeah, I think that McCall has shown in brief periods this year that he has got some explosive ability out of the running back spot. The thing with him, though, and what the Buckeyes really need to figure out, and why this game's perfect for it, is, going into 2017 next year, they're possibly without Curtis Samuel, they're without Dontre Wilson, and they could even be without JT Barrett if he decides to leave. So those are kind of the safety net people around Mike Weber. Now's a good chance against Maryland, who has one of the worst rush defenses that we've seen in a long time. Rest Mike Weber and his sprained shoulder up. Let him get healthy for Michigan State and Michigan, and let Demario McCall go out there and, show what he can do, because he's shown a bunch, but so far not one of his carries that he's had this year has been in the first half. And not one of his carries have been when Ohio State was not leading by more than 15 points. So he has not had a pressure situation at all. So, not only moving forward this year, but looking forward towards next year, give him a chance this week against, a subpar rush defense, see what he can do by, getting carries in the first quarter, moving forward, and give Weber a chance to rest, because they're going to need Weber a lot more against Michigan State and against Michigan than they will against Maryland.
Yeah, considering the elite defense that Michigan brings to the table, and who knows, maybe Michigan State plays to its talent and gives the Buckeyes a game.
Yeah.
That is in East Lansing, but specifically looking at Michigan, a top 3 to 5 defense in the nation, they're going to need to be balanced. And but it's kind of difficult. Do you work on the passing game against Maryland because that's what you're possibly going to need down the stretch, or do you just beat them up on the ground because they've been that dismal? 414 on the ground for Indiana against the Terps really stands out. 660 overall total offense for Michigan, 273 on the ground. You mentioned, I think before we came on, that Minnesota was the paltry rushing total of 230. That's the low bar in the Big Ten against Maryland. So whether it's Weber, McCall, JT Barrett out of the spread formation should make some hay on the ground against the Terps. Anything else stand out to you in regards to not necessarily Maryland being a huge threat, but working on some facets of the game with Michigan State and Michigan up ahead?
Well, I think the big thing that they have to do is really lean on what they figured out last week. Early on in the season, the coaching staff did a really good job of using Weber and Curtis Samuel. As we got into the middle part of the season, going into Big Ten play, it seemed like they just kind of could not figure out how to incorporate both of these people into the ball game. Last week, they kind of got better with it. When you think that I did a large article on this last week on the specific touches of Weber and Samuel. And, there were in 4 of the past 6 games, Curtis Samuel only touched the ball combined 2 times in the first quarter. To me, that just does not make sense. That is simple game planning. When the coaching staff scripts the plays, for some reason they just are not scripting plays for Curtis Samuel, or they aren't working. There's just no reason why he should touch the ball 2 combined times in the past 6 games. It just 4 of those games he had no touches. Last week, they did a good job of going back to kind of what they did against the Sooners. They got Curtis Samuel the ball 4 times in the first quarter. And that kind of carried over to the second quarter where he got the ball 8 times. And the second quarter is when the Buckeyes really exploded onto the scene. So second quarter, when they scored 17 offensive points, Curtis Samuel touched the ball 8 times. Mike Weber touched the ball 7 times. So, it kind of shows that they got to find that good balance that they had early on and work it throughout the whole game. So with that said, even though I said sit Mike Weber on Saturday, I really hope that does not mean slide Curtis Samuel back to the running back spot. Leave Curtis Samuel out there at the H-back spot. Let him play in the slot and let them continue to develop what they did on Saturday. Let JT Barrett be comfortable with Curtis Samuel, knowing that he is in the slot, throwing to him on first and second down in that 10 to 15 yard range, and let Curtis Samuel do his thing. I mean, that's where the Buckeyes just got away from it too much, was not giving the ball to Curtis Samuel and letting him make plays, and they did that finally on Saturday, and good things happened. So hopefully they continue to work on that moving forward, because, they're going to need Curtis Samuel, they're going to need Mike Weber, they're going to need Noah Brown, and they're going to need JT Barrett at his best for Michigan. As much as Buckeye fans don't like to compliment Michigan, Michigan's got a good team going this year, and they're going to be needing to be running on full cylinder when Michigan comes to town.
Ohio State fans, good news for you. Brandon and I trying to work out a time every Wednesday night to deliver you Ohio State previews each and every week. And as we head into the offseason, we'll talk recruiting and all sorts of goodies as well. So we'll keep that on tap and deliver a time for you, hopefully in the next week or two. Brandon Zimmerman from the Buckeye Battle Cry, setting us up for Ohio State and Maryland. Thanks, Brandon.
All right. Thank you, Mark.